how do we do the right thing on a consistent basis? Our job is to engage and inspire the people that are engaged in those programs to drive better business results. Well, I think some things we're looking at, AI is certainly one. It's going to be evolutionary, not revolutionary. We're making sure that it's front and center and certainly something that we're heavily engaged in.
Thank you so much for joining us today for another
Thank
deep
you,
dive.
Ariel. Appreciate it.
And for those of you that don't know who Mr. David Peckinpaugh is, he's the president and CEO of Maritz. You have more than 30 years of experience in the field. And just recently I found you because I had the opportunity to see Mr. Sharon's comment on, congratulating you for winning the Visionary Awards Lifetime Achievement as a business strategist that PCMA gives out. So that was something that sounds really exciting. How do you feel about that?
It's an honor. The celebration is in April, so I'm really looking forward to it and bringing my family and close friends and mentors in for that. It's been actually for me more than 40 years now in the industry, and as I've been telling people, it's like a cockroach, you just can't kill them. So at some point, you celebrate them. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think it really talks to the power of relationships, the power of mentorship. I've had incredible mentors and experiences in my career, and this is an opportunity more than celebrating me, really to celebrate them and the power of teamwork and relationships and in our industry. It's an amazing industry, and I've had a great career.
It's amazing. From the research I've done on you, you've been all around in terms of the events industry. For some
Yeah.
time, you were in hotels. You were also in convention bureaus. Your father was a lawyer, and you kind of explored that field a little bit. But how has those early experiences kind of shaped the way that you lead, your leadership style and your leadership vision?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, what you would hear is that I'm pretty collaborative, maybe sometimes to a fault, and I do get that feedback. But I really try to manage and operate with a team concept first and foremost. That doesn't mean at the end of the day, you don't have. I mean, you've got to make the decision, right? And so, if as a group you can't come to the decision, you obviously have to do that. But I think for me, all along, it's been around the three P's. It's around people, performance, and plan. So if you have the right people and you're working the right plan and you're getting performance from that plan, you're going to be successful. But the first P is people, and that is front and center. So I think what I've learned is different areas of the industry, the hotel, the convention visitor bureau, or DMOs, destination marketing organization, and then the third party space is really the power of relationships first and foremost. And that those three P's play in no matter what leadership role you're in. You have the right people, the right plan, and you're performing against that plan, you're probably going to have a pretty high likelihood of success.
That sounds amazing. Now, connecting that, what in a way motivated you to launch the initiatives of take good care of each other? That's one of them that you launched, and then the other one was unleash human potential,
Potential.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, those two. What
Yeah,
inspired
a
you to
couple things.
launch them?
Yeah, I think the purpose of this organization, I've been with Maritz now 14 years, and the last 4 years in the CEO role is it's always been a people driven culture. But how do you define that so that it makes sense to people? And so a couple things is, what is your purpose statement? What is your value proposition? And then what is your core value? So our purpose statement is unleashing human potential. And we define that in four stakeholders: our people, our clients, the communities in which we operate, and then our supplier partners. So we look at that and say, what we do in this industry, being so relationship based, that we touch so many people, that we have the potential in our design and execution of events to unleash everyone's potential. And so we take that into account, and everything we do, the decisions we make, and the filters that we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to live into that. And then the core value of take good care of each other is something that I actually learned from one of my mentors way back when in the 90s. And again, it's that same four stakeholder model: people, clients, communities, and suppliers. And it's always just resonated. It's how do we do the right thing on a consistent basis?
Hey there, just a quick message. If you've made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you. Right now, 96% of the people who watch our videos haven't subscribed yet. And if you're one of them, I just want to say, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, if you've gotten value from our content, subscribing is one of the best ways to support us. It's free, it takes just a second, and it really helps us keep going, creating more of what you love. Thank you for being here.
By no means are we perfect. We make mistakes, but we always anchor back on that core value is, are we doing the right thing and are we taking care of those stakeholders? And then at the end of that is our value proposition, which is engaging and inspiring people to drive better business results. And that talks about every investment in every program has specific goals and objectives in mind. Our job is to engage and inspire the people that are engaged in those programs to drive better business results. There's always an ROI, always a business initiative and goal that is attached to every one of the programs. We can never lose sight of that.
That's so true. I was interviewing a couple of weeks ago, actually like a month ago, Danny Hartman. I don't know if you've ever met him, had the opportunity.
No, I have not.
He's an amazing leader as well, and he was actually telling me, giving us some tips on how to lead with purpose and how to lead for the long run. And what he was saying is that every relationship that he approaches is more like a family. He kind of sees in the other person like, okay, if this was my family member, how would I do things? Like, how would I approach this? And obviously, you would approach it with love. So that's the energy and that's the approach that I perceive that you have as well in your leadership style. Now, what examples can you give of transformations that you've seen within your employees and well, your team and your clients with that approach?
Yeah, a couple examples I would point out. One is our ongoing, and we're in year 14 of our participation in the fight against human trafficking. That it was not an easy topic 14 years ago to bring up in front of the organization, but it got an amazing result and well over 150 hands raised in our anti-human trafficking committee that for 14 years now has been driving our work. And that's an example of where your culture comes to life, right? It's not about necessarily 100% about our day-to-day job, but it's about how do we impact the greater world. And that's a perfect example, right, of unleashing human potential, right? We've got an opportunity to build awareness and make a difference. Another example, I think, is what's going on right now, which is an attack against some initiatives that many organizations have. And ours is called Belonging at Maritz. And we have 6 employee resource groups that are focused on issues like amplifying women in the workforce, caregivers, right? So a lot of people are now with generations are thrown into the responsibility of caregivers. And we have, race and ethnicity, we have LGBTQI, we have 6 ERGs. Those are all employee driven. It's not top down, and they're doing the right thing. They're taking care of each other and our people. And at the end of the day, that shouldn't come and go with the wins of the day. It's about who you are as an organization, what you stand for, and our commitment. So those are, 2 examples of where I think our culture comes to life in not only how do we make decisions, but then how our people operate, what they believe in and what they support.
How are you guys adapting to the current landscape? Because, the narrative out there is very different, and at least not within our industry, because I feel the events industry is very aware of, just values that should be multiplied, sustainability, values. But how are you guys seeing this whole narrative that's going out there in terms of socio-political issues and the instability in the market along that line?
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind when you ask that question is resilience, right? And if we haven't shown anything over the last 5 years, is that we as an industry are incredibly resilient, and that means we have to be flexible. We have to change with the times. I think at the end of the day, you got to stay true to yourself, right? What are your core values? How do you want to operate your business? What are your goals and objectives? And how do you go to market? And what does that mean to you, to your clients, and to your overall stakeholders? I don't think those things change because of administrations or things in the wind. You've got to be flexible. You've got to adapt, and you have to look at the sort of the warning signs. Like right now, we've got a lot of things going on that could affect event attendance, right? When
Mm.
funding is being challenged and the ability to attend conferences is being challenged. You got to be on top of that and be aware of it. But at the end of the day, those are factors that play into, but your core strategy should pretty much stay the same. So I think resilience and flexibility are the words of the day. And don't change who you are, right? Be authentic and stick to your core values, your purpose, and be true to yourselves.
How does David face failure? Every time, how do you measure when you fail? How do you recognize when you fail? And how does that play within that lifetime
Yeah.
career? You know?
Well, anybody, especially at my age, has had a lot of that, right? So I think the key is not repeating the same mistakes over and over, really learning from those experiences. And I think if you ignore the realities of why this happened, why that happened, you got to get down to the facts. And then you've got to learn from that and make sure that you change your either processes or behavior moving into the future. Because shame, we all make mistakes, but shame on any of us if we make the same mistake twice or more than that. That means we're not listening, we're not learning, and we're not adapting.
That's true. Now, winning this lifetime award, what does that represent for you as a, like in an evolving career? Because usually lifetime awards kind of say like, hey, it's a lifetime,
Right. Right.
So,
Well, it's been interesting because this award's been around, I think, since the early 2000s. And early on, there were people that were being recognized that were in their 40s, in their 50s, probably more appropriate because I've been in the industry more than 40 years. I'm not done yet, but I'm certainly closer to the end of my career than I am to the beginning. So you sort of have to take that into consideration. And also, it's a way not only to recognize many other incredible recipients at this celebration in April, but also helps the organization, right? PCMA has been instrumental in my career. Many of the moves and the advancements I've had in my career are because of relationships that I've built at PCMA over the years, convening leaders, serving on boards, serving on the foundation board. So I think, and whatever organization you've been attached to in the industry, it's important to dig in, to volunteer, to give back, because it gives back multiple times more than what you give. And to me, that's really what I take to heart here is it's not only a celebration of me and all the relationships and mentors I've had, but a celebration of PCMA and what that means to us as individuals as we're building our careers, advancing our careers, and ultimately ending our careers. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this. It's a 360 celebration in many different ways.
amazing. Now, that for me, that raises a little bit of question because as time passes, I've realized that every time I find new mentors and new people that teach me and that serve as reference points for me, who are your reference points at this stage in your career?
I've stayed true to my mentors. There are probably less than five individuals that I always go to as a sounding board when I face issues, and each one has sort of their own category. Maybe somebody that is a special in finance, or someone special in HR issues, someone who's a specialist in legal issues. I sort of have those pegged. Um, and then, some generalists, right? People that just know me, know how I operate, how I think, and can really tell me the truth and sort of net it out and say, you're asking me, here's my opinion and here's my recommendation. And then you take all that in and make a decision.
Yeah,
So, I've stayed pretty consistent and have been very lucky that I've had those individuals in my life.
yeah. For me, every time I speak to my mentors, it's like they put my feet on the ground. You're like, yeah, you're a dreamer, but okay, this is how
Yeah. Here's a reality check, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The reality check. Exactly. That's exactly the word. Now, how are younger generations mentoring you? What are you learning from the new generations that is shaping your leadership towards the future?
Yeah, I have a daughter who's in the industry. She's late 20s. She's actually in PCMA's 20 in their 20 program. So
Nice.
very excited about that. Love having her in the industry and having the opportunity to see her at events like IMEX or PCMA's convening leader and some others. So that's kind of fun. So I learned a lot from my daughter because she's kind of like me, but obviously, significantly younger and a whole different perspective. One of our ERGs, employee resource groups, is generations. So that was one that was added because of a request from our employees, that we need to address the generations in the workforce, and how do we communicate differently? How do we learn from each other? And how does this organization adapt based on that work? So, and then, when you go to events like IMEX or PCMA's Convening Leaders, I try to go to events that maybe normally I wouldn't attend, because that's where you're going to be challenged to think differently and behave differently. And I love those opportunities. So when I'm there, I'm going to as many of the education sessions as I can in areas that I normally wouldn't be involved in. And there was one that was led by the 20s in their 20s, and some others that was really exploring issues that are facing the industry today, like sustainability, and the weaponization of travel, which is front and center. So those are all opportunities, I think, for someone in my stage, is to learn. And if we're not evolving, then we're stagnating, and we're not going to succeed. So we all have to continue to learn and grow.
What are the trends that you are looking forward, now that the world is changing quite rapidly lately?
Yeah.
Just AI a year ago was completely different.
Yeah.
Now, what are the trends, including AI, that you're
Yeah.
seeing towards the future that can shape the future of Maritz as well?
Yeah. Well, I think some things we're looking at, AI is certainly one, and we could spend a whole session on just
Yeah.
that, but I'm not going to do that. But I think, we're looking at it as a significant tool in the toolbox. I think it's going to be evolutionary, not revolutionary, in many ways in our industry and our company, but we're embracing it. We're making sure that it's front and center, and certainly something that we're heavily engaged in.
Mhm.
And we have all kinds of different work teams that are involved in that. The one I always bring up that a lot of people forget is the airlines and the health of the airlines and what's going on in the airline industry. If you look at our industry, we are dependent heavily on the airlines, right? We mostly travel. We can do it by car in some areas, and obviously in your backyard, but most of our events require travel. The weaponization of travel because of sustainability and green initiatives is front and center. It's probably being led by Europe and the EU more so than anywhere else. But that's something that we have to keep our eyes and ears very closely attuned to. I think legal issues along with compliance is another one, right? More and more in the US, you look at states like California, the state of Washington, Illinois, et cetera, have significant compliance and regulations coming out that are going to affect of how do we register people for events, what information and data can we share, what are the data protection laws. That's going to be front and center, as well as cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, you've seen incidents in our industry over the last several years. That's not going to change. And so what are we all doing to work together? Because it's not one side or the other, right? We've got to work hand in hand with our clients, with our suppliers, to ensure the security of the data that we're all operating with and sharing in many instances. So those are some, I think, that are things that sort of keep me up at night, but that we're zeroed in on and focused in on as a company.
That sounds amazing. Truly, what you're saying is quite true, and it's shocking how reliant we are on airlines and how little to none control sometimes there is, especially now with this whole new narrative as well. Just less laws, less control, but we need to stay in order for us to have a clear view and a clear direction. I'm a firm believer of looking at indicators
Yeah.
of success, like KPIs. Yes, you could call them KPIs, of course, but I'd like to look a little bit, deeper into that. What are some KPIs that for you are important as a human, not as a leader, but as a human?
It's really interesting. I think one of the things that we do and we work with internally is having your own purpose statement, not an organizational purpose statement, but an individual purpose statement. And so to me, that's a KPI, right? What is that, and how are you living into that? And how do you grade yourself on that scale throughout the year? We're very committed to strategic planning, to regular controls, reports, KPIs. Those are organizational. But we also set up goals that we call performance goals. And we require people to enter one or two business related and also one or two personal. So every year, we're all developing our own personal goals, and those are our own KPIs, and we're measured against those, and then we're compensated against our achievement against those goals. So, I mean, that's kind of how I manage it and how we manage it as an organization. So, sort of a dual answer. There's a personal part of that, but also an organizational part of that. Because if you don't put it down in writing, you don't have a plan or a specific target to work against, odds are you're not going to get it done. And so, what you measure is what you get as far as results. And that's kind of the approach that I have and we have.
Yeah, we're the captain of the ship. We have to make sure that we're looking at the compass. Yeah. So I was talking to Kai Haytendorf a couple of weeks ago as well, and something that really stuck with me was the fact that our industry has been for many years very event-based or just, focused on the moment. But now the needs of the customers and the trend itself is looking for a more long-term commitment, more long-term engagement, either with internal clients, external clients, with members, just all around. We want things that last long. How are you envisioning that within Maritz?
If you want to stay ahead in the industry, Bold Push Plus by Julius Solaris is where you need to be. From dopamine management at events to the event industry skill matrix, this platform gives you exclusive insights, strategies, and 400 plus event leaders to connect with. Join now through our exclusive link in the description. The future of events starts here.
It's a really fascinating question, because I think that's true in some instances, but I also think that fights against a little bit of what we see in the marketplace, which tends to be a much more shorter term, shorter window outlook because of all the uncertainty that is out there. So I think it's probably my answer would be more of a balanced answer, which is anytime we can extend and develop long-term relationships, that is absolutely the focus. I mean, we have a sales conference starting this week, and one of the things we're going to talk about is our organizational success in keeping and maintaining business, right? We've got clients that we've had for over 40 years. I mean, that is unusual and incredibly, and something to be incredibly proud of. But we also need to keep that wave of new relationships and new clients coming in. The buyer is different, how they buy, the length of what they're buying, all that is changing. Some industries, yeah, you can get that longer term relationship, but there are a lot of other industries where no, it's still very short term. So it's kind of a mixed bag, I think, in answering that question. The longer you can build a relationship and have that commitment, the better off you can do, and the better off I think you can work as partners in achieving your mutually defined goals. I think the shorter the relationship, the more transactional it becomes, and it becomes harder and harder to sort of build that value proposition. So certainly long term is the goal, but we have to also be realistic on it differs market to market, industry to industry, and you got to be flexible in dealing with that.
Definitely. Back when I was in university, learning, there was a statistic that really stuck with me as well, which is that it's 67% easier to retain a client than to capture a new one. So, building those long-term relationships is fundamental. Now, Mr. David, we have a tradition here in the podcast in which we ask our invitees to leave a question for the next invitee. All right. So the guest that came last was Miguel Neves. The question that he left was, how would you call the industry and the professionals that are in it? Like, how would you call the events industry and the professionals that are in it if it wasn't the events industry? How would you call it?
I think it would be human gatherings. And I think at the end of the day, that's what all these events are. They're gatherings of individual humans that have their own set of behaviors, beliefs, outlooks, outcomes, goals, and objectives. And as an industry, if we looked at it that way, in that we're pulling this diverse group of humans together, that's really who we are and what we are as an industry. So that would be my quick answer.
All right, Mr. David, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming here. And I hope to have you back sometime soon, honestly.
Love to do that. Now, do I get to create a question for the next guest?
Of course, but internally. We're gonna do that privately so
Oh,
they don't
internally.
know what
Okay.
to answer. All
Okay.
right. Well, thank you so much. I send you a big
All right.
hug and hope to have you back soon. Okay?
Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate the opportunity.